Hi guys, this is my solution to a turn-based grid-based movement system with AI NavMesh. There's a few details in building this thing that we have to do carefully. So the first one is definitely the tile prefab. The tile prefab is actually built out of three separate planes or quads. And in my example here, I have what I call the X path, which is a one wide quad, the Z path, which is 1 unit long, but they're both quarter units, and I guess what I'll call width, right? So they're thin strips. And very importantly, I've created a layer called NavMesh so that they won't be rendered in the game. And I have made sure that they are marked navigation static. I went ahead and made them everything static because they're not going to move in the game, but most importantly, navigation static. The visual quad is just what the player sees, and that one is on the default layer. And it doesn't matter if you want to mark him something static, but do not mark him as navigation static because he's not part of the nav mesh. The nav mesh is then baked this way. I'm going to turn off the visual tile just for a moment so you guys can see kind of this array of tiles. The navigation mesh is got several important properties. One, I set the agent radius to really small, 0.05, so that I can create these thin strips of navigation. Two, I had to do this according to the instructions, which basically said set the voxel size to 2 to 4 times the agent radius. So I did that. I set the minimum region area to 1. So these properties helped make it so that when I hit bake, it sees exactly the available spots to go. I also marked a giant wall as a nav mesh static so that my agent would know to go around the wall. And note that the system lets you walk on the wall if you happen to be there. We could turn that off, but I don't care. There's no way by which my agent can jump up that high. Okay, next up, obviously you make your nav mesh, you bake it, and when you see this, you're pretty happy. You then have to code up an AI. And my AI has a couple interesting properties. I gave him a nose so we know which way he's facing. But more importantly, his capsule collider is super thin. You guys see this capsule collider? I set the radius to 0.01. That has to do with the fact that my tiles had one more important property to them. They actually have a box trigger right in the middle. You guys see this box? Look at it carefully. Okay, that box is marked as a trigger, and my code is going to rely on that to tell when my AI has come into a cell's center or a tile's center. Okay, let's look at the code. The code isn't too bad. Oh, wait, one more thing on my AI. He has a kinematic rigid body. That just lets the on-trigger enter function work. Because it's kinematic, physics won't move this guy at all. The NavMesh agent will move him. I gave my NavMesh agent enormous angular speed and acceleration, so he can start and stop and spin on a dime if he has to, which is what this type path requires. Gave him some other properties as well. You can look and see what's important there. Code, not too bad. Obviously, I've got to know my destination, which I just set to some random game object in my scene. And then I did what? Basically, I said to when the guy enters one of those triggers, we set my agent is stop to true, so he stops moving. And then when you press jump, you're flagging that the turn is over, so you set is stop to false, and he starts moving again. So this basically tells him what his final destination is, and these stop and starts basically control when he starts and when he stops, and we stop him when he enters a trigger. Okay, that's it. Once again, this with, I turned off the visual, but long story short, he's following that hidden path. Well, that path is hidden, by the way, because my main camera does not render the NavMesh layer. Let me turn back on the visual quads, and let's hit play and watch this thing again. So there you have it. Hope this helps out anyone trying to make turn-based grid movement.